Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and assalamu alaikum to all our viewers. Very good evening to you all. I would like to welcome you all for this session on student counseling and mental well-being. So today we'll be discussing about the role of student counseling, particularly in prevalence of anxiety, stress, and other related disorders or medical, mental health conditions. However, before we start with our discussion with the prestigious speakers, I would like to, take this opportunity to introduce myself and our today's panelist. Again, I would try to keep my introduction very short and brief, since we have got a lot of interesting discussion coming up. My name is Ahmer Zuberi, and I'm been working at Liaquat National Hospital as a clinical psychologist. With us today, we have Mr. Syed Zain Abbas. He is Manager Health and Wellness at Habib University. Joining him is Mr. Azam, who is a psychosocial counselor at Imkaan Welfare Organization. And last but not the least, we have Ms. Anita Zohaib, who is a clinical psychologist and lecturer at Cedar College. So I believe let's begin our discussion with few questions which I have in my mind, and perhaps if all our speakers are ready, so we would really appreciate if our viewers or panelists can join us during the discussion. And we would also want our viewers to ask questions, which obviously will be addressed at the end of the session. So my first question would be directed towards Mr. Zain, where
Yes.
We would want to know or talk about the role of student counseling, particularly in the educational institutions for mental well-being, especially in the time of COVID, when education institutions are conducting classes online and exams are being delayed. So perhaps if you can, share your experience about it.
Well, thank you, Ahmer, for the introduction. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Before we dive into that question, I would just like to start off by saying that attending university can be very stressful for students. In addition to coping with the academic stress that they have to deal with a lot of stressful tasks that they have to manage their work life and their family life. So once they enter the education institute, they have a lot of stresses on them. So dealing with them is very important for the educational institute that they are admitted into. Giving the example of Habib University, what we have done is we have a whole mental health well-being program for our students. Uh, we give out awareness sessions for our students. We have on board mental health counselors for students, and we provide mental health counseling for our students. During the COVID time, it has been very stressful for our students to cope up with the academic responsibilities because everything has moved online. The one-on-one connection that they used to have with the faculty members is not there anymore. So that has added to the stress of examination and of learning. We have tried to bridge that gap uh, by increasing our outreach for our students, providing them with awareness on mental health, giving them a platform where they can come and reach out to us if they need any help. Our counselors are available for them whenever they want to approach us. So the role of an academic institution is very important in these times, especially when stress levels are really high in students.
And what have been the prime concerns of students?
Uh, Currently, given the situation, they are facing a lot of anxiety. There have
Right.
been cases of depression as well. There have been also cases of self-harm. And these are the main issues that the students are facing these days.
Right.
Anxiety is at the top most because the the stress of examination is there, and like I said, the one-on-one facility that they had with the faculty members is not there anymore. So the approachability of the faculty member is only through online, through emails, through phone calls, or through Zoom sessions such as these.
Right. And like you mentioned, there have been a rise in anxiety and depression, as well as self-harm cases. While working at Liaquat National, it's been a similar experience. Where we have seen young adults, and not only young adults but adolescents as well. Coming up with personality disorders, specifically, with borderline personality disorder or obsessive compulsive personality disorders. So my next question is directed towards Azam. Azam, you have been working as a psychosocial counselor, and you are also, expert into CBT as well, cognitive behavioral therapy. Okay, I guess Azam is not there. अच्छा, Anita, let's move towards you. आपसे पूछते हैं, you have been working with Cedar College, right? I think most of your audience has been OA level students.
Adolescents. Like previously, I was working with Foundation Public School, and there I
जी,
was teaching the elementary से लेके the A levels age group.
right,
But
right,
majority of the problems that we faced were of the adolescents. They are not just facing the change on their behavioral level, but there is a vast change in their cognitive level as well, which means that they are not thinking the way they should think. I mean, it's too much of negativity on their part. They're just focusing on the negative aspect and forgetting about all the positive things that are being happening these days.
right,
Apart from that, all due to these things, they are either feeling like very lonely, isolated, they are not willing to express their ideas, and then eventually what happens, they end up into maybe anxiety, maybe into depression, and sometimes they're also ending up into taking too much of substance, which means like they're ending up into substance use. So yes, these kind of thinking pattern is not only hampering their lives but also their relationships. They are not going well with their academic performance as well as with their relationships in their daily lives. So yes, these are all the problems that we have been facing in the adolescent's life. Apart from that, it is also affecting their own self-esteem. They think that they're not worthy of being an individual, which then makes them feel so much of inferiority complex, and they are doing things which are not in their domain, or which they cannot do in their own capacity, but they are going out of the way just to make like please people, maybe to get social approval. So they are using too much of social media these days, posting things which are like at times which are very much irrelevant, but with that they're getting fame out of that. So yes, these are the things which I believe, and like the other two speakers can add on to these things, that these are the challenges which they are facing a lot. One more thing that which I would like to highlight is a too much problem of the struggle is like working from home, or there's a struggle between how to maintain healthy relationship by staying at home 24/7. At the same time, they need to balance their work life balance as well, right? So this is one of the major challenges which the students, or which the adolescents as well as the parents are facing these days. So yes.
right. So I mean, do you guys also try to integrate some form of parental counseling as well?
Yes, so the major part which I was doing at Foundation Public School was of the parental counseling. It was not only one-to-one counseling, but it was more of the educational workshops which I was conducting for them, like either on the parenting styles, how to deal with the challenges, then how to cope up with the psychosocial learning in this pandemic era. So these were different topics which we had talked about.
and how receptive parents and students are towards counseling, or the mental health well-being itself.
Okay, yes, initially it was a big stigma. Like, अगर आपसे भी कोई कह दे कि you need a counseling, so again, it's a big question to us also कि क्या हो गया भाई, नफसियाती हो गई हो, पागल हो गई हो. So yes, this is a dilemma which is going on in our society, but with passive awareness and this spreading of these kinds of like workshops through workshops, I must say, people are getting acceptive to this idea that okay, similarly if we have like certain kinds of physical disease, people can have mental problems as well, emotional problems as well. So this is not something that we're labeling them, this is just something that we're helping them to get out of these problems. So yes, by this time people are into these things. And see, counseling is very much different with psychotherapy. If a person
True.
hears the word of psychotherapy, then the person says कि क्या हो गया, नफसियाती हो गई, because psycho का word एक आ जाता है. But counseling, it's very general term because now it's very open. Career counseling, it's like educational counseling. So similarly, if you have a emotional counseling session या कोई emotional counseling के लिए जा रहा है, तो people are okay with these terms because then they understand कि okay, there will be a person who will guide them, who will facilitate them, and who will provide them with suggestions that will help them to encounter any of the life difficulties which they must be encountering in their life.
Right. And do you also face similar challenges, Zain, if I may ask?
So, adding on to Anita, the thing is, parental involvement in our counseling sessions is close to negligible because obviously the students are above 18 and they have the right for privacy, confidentiality. And we've also seen a lot of these issues that our students may be facing may stem from the family structure at home. So involving parents at that level, we don't do that. It all depends on the consent of the student. Um, Only in cases of suicide ideation or self harm may we involve the parent or any other guidance or any other guardian in the case. But yeah, so this is the extent to which the parents' involvement is there in our counseling sessions.
So you do take into account, all of ethical considerations if once
Yes.
one of this any of your students could walk up to you.
So yes, whoever signs up for a mental health counseling session has is provided with a contract between the counselor and the student, in which we make sure that they understand the terms and conditions of it, and it involves we completely respect the confidentiality of the student, and everything that is discussed in the counseling session stays between the counselor and the student. Like I said, only in matters of self harm or suicide ideation or harm to others is when we will involve other people, such as the parents or the guardian.
Say, and do you also follow the same pattern, Anita?
Yes, we only break the confidentiality, and it has been very much communicated to the client or the student who is coming to the counseling session for the very first time that yes, only the information which is relevant, then only we will, and it is something that is very harmful to your life or the harmful for the other's life, then only we will, breach the confidentiality, and then too also we will not speak a lot about the student, only the information which is relevant to that particular incident will be then shared with the parents.
Okay, and will you be taking a student's consent over it?
Yes, we have a proper consent form, you have a proper demographic form, we have a proper intake form that we go through first, and then we start the counseling session, and then also we have the particular progress reports जिसमें हम कहते हैं कि हर session में what we have done and what are the plans for the next session, what are the treatment goals that we need to follow for the next session.
Say, Azam, are you there?
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Ajay, we were discussing about what are the issues being faced by students. especially when it comes to anxiety. I think Azam will be joining us. He's probably be having connectivity issues. अच्छा, कोपिंग के हवाले से फिर यानी क्या आप लोगों के एजेंडाज होते हैं?
So, when it comes to dealing with or the coping strategies, if you must say, when it comes to mental health, a lot of students that we've seen tend to go towards unhealthy coping strategies, such as could be indulgence in overeating, it could be sleeping a lot, it could be substance use. So, in our counseling, in our awareness, we try to include healthy strategies for them to cope with their mental health issues. That involves eating healthy for one, exercising regularly, having a good sleep pattern, uh, having a positive relationship with your fellow peers, your friends, talking to them regularly, because currently, because of this social distancing, a lot has impacted our students as well. They are now communicating with their students only through their phones, or or through social media. The interaction, the because human beings are social creatures at the end of the day, and we need the social interaction. So once that is removed and a screen is put in front of you, a lot of damage is done to the brain of young adolescents. So we try to make sure that if not meeting regularly, they do check in with their friends on phone. If possible, they can meet them in person. So yeah, that's how we try to make sure that they are involved in healthy coping strategies.
Right. Azam, can you hear us now?
Yeah, now I can finally hear you guys. Apologies for that.
Chalo, good.
There was some
Great to have you
connectivity
back.
issues.
Say, no problem. Acha, we were discussing about mental health disorders, specifically to anxiety related disorders, depression. There's been a significant rise in OCD cases, personality disorders. You have got extensive experience, dealing clients with using cognitive behavioral therapy. ठीक है,
Okay,
तो
so I can add on to what I've been hearing the discussion a little bit. I want to add on to that as well.
sure,
So
sure,
a
please.
little bit, a little bit about myself as well. Uh, the work that I'm doing is in a different sort of a community within Karachi. It's within a marginalized community. So वहाँ पे there's already a lack of education and many other social challenges जो applicable हैं वहाँ पे for children, for adults, for adolescents, for the entire community members. There's statelessness involved over there. That means these are individuals without any CNICs. They're individuals that do not have any home country, जैसे host country नहीं है उनका कोई. Neither the country that they're living in tries to uh, own them, or the country that they originally where their heritage comes from tries to own them. So there's a different side of impact of COVID within this society as well. मतलब जितना मैं यहाँ पे जो पॉइंट जो करने की कोशिश कर रहा हूँ यहाँ पे is that even in a society like this where there are a lot of already social challenges, when something like COVID hit, the education system over there was impacted. And within the education system, within the already existing challenges of the society, there were so many challenges that were added on. For example, as Zan mentioned, the unhealthy coping strategies that a lot of people were involving themselves into. We can see that within this particular society, there was an increase in usage of substances, for example. And the earliest stage that substances that I've seen being used over there was around 8 years old. So there is, and that's like a common element over there that at a very young age, something of sort is made available where a person can start using substances to cope with their environmental challenges. When COVID hit, that just increased tenfold. Now, what we're trying to do over there is we're trying to create an education and awareness and psychoeducation campaign through workshops, as Anita mentioned earlier on as well. if there are a lot of workshops, if there are a lot of trainings at ground level, so that's where we can actually make the difference come in. So what we do on a semi-daily basis, like every alternative week or किसी frequency पे, we go out to different schools as well within the community, जहाँ पे हम teachers के साथ बैठते हैं, उनको हम training देते हैं. For example, we would give them the training on stress management so that they're able to further disseminate it to their students as well. Once they're able to cope with their challenges as well, they'll be able to model that behavior that students can follow as well. So it's not always the direct approach that we're trying to target, it's also the indirect approaches. Because as mentioned, the stigma towards the direct approach is a lot. Uh, and we have an outreach team that goes door to door and informs people about the mental health clinic that is established over there in the colony. Now, what sort of responses these guys get at times are that यार घर पे कोई पागल नहीं है यहाँ पे, हमारे घर में ऐसा कोई केस नहीं है, मतलब आप क्यों आए हो, and sometimes I would just slam the door shut, but there would be a lot of non-responsiveness from people towards the idea of mental health itself. Now, if we take that into different sectors of Karachi, I can see that same thing being represented in different cultures as well, subcultures of Karachi as well, जहाँ पे वो stigma है, because and that stigma does not only uh, deteriorate the mental health का concept, but it also destroys the ability of individuals of getting help towards their challenges, towards the problems that they're facing. For example, a person would not be referred to a psychiatrist, he might not be referred to a psychologist, he might not be referred to a counselor at all. There might be an entire approach where a person is going towards a spiritual healer for managing their symptoms with COVID anxiety. Or if a person, for example, जिसके अंदर psychotic features आ चुके हुए हैं, that person is going towards some other form of healing, मतलब जो spiritual healing या किसी और form of healing के through अपने आप को ठीक करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, rather than going towards a psychiatrist or a clinical psychologist to get an assessment done and then get uh, their life back on track, basically. So, so what I was basically trying to add over here is that the challenges that we're facing have been coming from a long time as well, and it is continued. Matlab it's something that will be continued for a little while longer as well. But with the efforts that are being increased at school levels, at university levels, at institutional levels as well, uh, there will be a change, a gradual change, but we can't expect that change to come overnight or too fast for us.
But at the same time, we do witness that there have been cognitive distortions as well. So how do you tend to address them?
Cognitive distortions के ऊपर अगर हम बात करते हैं, cognitive distortions के ऊपर अगर हम बात करते हैं, then we need to understand again like concepts of basic psychology. अगर हम जाते हैं कि where do basic notions generally develop? Many different school of thoughts would point towards the early childhood of the person कि उसका तो उसके experiences जैसे थे उसके मुताबिक उसकी सोच बनी हुई होगी. Then there would be approaches that talk about the current influences on them, including something like digital media, where you have constant access to a lot of people's opinions that are unsubstantiated, not empirical, and it's an opinion forming cycle that continues on. That is, I feel like, categorized by digital media and its influence on the current generation, specifically with COVID pushing people towards their homes again. The only other outlet that you do get is a social and a digital platform. So with that platform being available, there's a lot of disadvantages that a person needs to be aware of, and then mindfully at least recognize the challenges that can come forward from a digital world, and hopefully
Right.
make rational choices accordingly.
Sahi. Acha, now it's $1 million question. It's for all of you to answer. Who can be a counselor? And what qualifications and or certifications required for anyone to become a counselor? As a matter of fact, Anita, आप बताइए.
Yes. So basically, अगर हम proper ethical domain से लेके चलें तो yes, a counselor can be one who have done a specialization in clinical psychology. It can be masters or at least MPhil. And for a practicing psychologist, the person must have a PhD degree. But then for a counselor, it couldn't be something कि आपने कोई छोटा मोटा कोई course कर लिया, you have done a diploma, and then you are saying that you can be a counselor. Because again, then counselor needs to work on the dynamics of the person, which is the underlying cause of that problem, and then we need to work on the cognitive as well as on the behavioral aspect. It is not something कि आपने behavioral level पे किसी भी स्टूडेंट की कोई भी प्रॉब्लम को सुपरफिशियली सॉल्व कर लिया, सो द प्रॉब्लम विल रिमेन देयर, and that behavioral tips the child can understand or the student can understand from the Google as well. There's no point of being a counselor then, right? So yes, we need to have a proper degree, we need to have a proper training. Afterwards we can be then a counselor at school or at a university.
Right. Zain, do you agree with Anita?
Yeah, I would agree with Anita that you would need a degree to become a counselor at any institution. But there are also, to become a counselor, there are also some certified courses that are available. That does not include that you need to have a degree. But I don't exactly know what's the different where the difference arises when you need a clinical psychology degree and when you need just a certification. Because according to my understanding, if you want to dive into some deep issues such as uh, suicide prevention or sexual abuse, then you need to have a thorough understanding or a specialization in that particular field. I may be wrong. You can correct me, Anita, if that is what's required when dealing with cases like those.
Basically, if you're dealing with any case and we need to dig down like to the root cause of that problem, then of course the person needs to go to a proper therapist, because there the person needs to have long sessions. The duration and the time period will also be prolonged as compared to what counseling session says. Again, there is a difference between a counselor and a therapist, because counselor can just provide you with the guidance and with the
Mm.
suggestions of that particular problem, and it will be very much like it will be a time bounded thing. It cannot go like beyond maybe 4 or 5 sessions. Whereas if you're going for a proper therapy, then the therapy can dig down and it can move on to weeks and 2 months even.
Ji
Yeah.
Azam, what do you think? Acha, do you guys agree कि यानी can a counselor be a psychologist or a psychologist can be a counselor, vice versa? Or what is your opinion in this regard?
Yes,
Anita, आप बताएं.
as far as I can comment on this, I would say that a psychologist can be a counselor,
So we have some
right? Because the
connectivity issues
psychology
again.
is a degree होती है, and the courses we have done throughout our entire career, and the training that we have acquired can cover that counseling aspect, right? But a counselor cannot be a proper psychologist, because कि वो फिर proper therapies नहीं कर सकते, because there are different therapies that we need to incorporate in our therapeutic aspect, like CBT होती है, REBT
Exactly.
है, then we have
Exactly.
psychoanalysis,
Yes.
then we have humanistic approach. So different theories होती है, different
True.
therapies होती है
True.
that we need to incorporate.
True.
Yes, I would agree with Anita on that. Yes, that's
Right.
true.
What's your opinion in this regard, Azam? Who can be a counselor?
Hello.
Azam?
Yes, now I can hear you. Sorry, your voice wasn't
Yeah.
like पहले सुनाई नहीं दे रहा था.
No problem. Acha, we're just talking about who can be a counselor. Like, is there any particular set of qualification that is required,
Of course, of course.
or
I did hear a little bit of Anita and Zain's answer. उसके अंदर
जी
उन्होंने mention किया था the PhD requirements, the master's requirements. I do agree with
जी
all of that.
Azam, there's some connectivity issue at your end. Acha, Anita and Zain, do you really feel counseling young children would be, easier than adults, or probably vice versa?
Uh, Easier than adults in terms of approaching them and for counseling sessions.
Yes.
Are you able to hear me
Or
now?
to counsel them.
I would believe that yes, children it would be easier to maybe approach them than adults because we were discussing stigma. So the realization of stigma it comes when you become an adult, and that is where the societal pressures are on you, and and you would then be impacted of what other people think if you're going for counseling sessions. Whereas if you are a young child and you're going with another guidance or your guardian or your parents, then it's much easier for your parents to convince you that you need this session.
Right. What is your opinion in this regard, Anita?
Yes, I totally agree with what Zain is saying. And then, of course, if you are like children under the age of 18 comes under the category of minors. So, yes, the authority figures are there. They can keep a check and balance on them. And then the very important point is कि जब तक उनकी कोई self image or self identity they haven't been like properly formed, right? They're in the process of forming that. So of course that self worth वाली चीज़ है, it's not connected with the like self image की जो shame आ जाती है, which is linked again with the stigma as the Zan was speaking. So yes,
True.
counseling children is a lot better than, and it's easier than what we can counsel to an adult or an
Right.
adolescent.
Right. And what does your experience say, Azam? Is it easier to counsel children rather than adults, or you think it's vice versa?
With children, there are a lot of different approaches that you have to apply when it comes to in comparison to adults. Using forms of play or art is something that has always been more uh, something that connects better with children. It's all about breaking that basic connectivity at the first level. और उसके बाद अपना काम करने वाले changing element. There has to be a certain level of rapport that's need to be built between the child and the counselor. And to improve that particular relationship, there are a lot of different elements that are involved. As I mentioned, if, for example, if you use play elements or if you use elements from art therapy techniques and use these particular sorts of mediums, so you get better responses from children. So definitely, I do think there's a difference in the way that children and adults are generally treated when it comes to talk about psychotherapy and counseling.
Right.
I would just like to point out in this our experience that Habib, as the Azam was mentioning, that in children you add a lot of art and play to the counseling session. We've also seen that if you do the same thing with adults, it is also a breakthrough in that, and they also, I guess, are more open to these sorts of therapy. Um, because we've seen when we do our mental health awareness or mental health fairs at university, a lot of crowd is gathered where there is a coloring of the mandalas, or there are some, where they have to write out their emotions with some colors. So there are a lot of students that are, inclined towards those sort of behavioral treatments or, therapy techniques.
Right.
Art therapy and music therapy is always effective for any of the age group, I believe.
True.
Hmm.
True. It has been, and that's what we have witnessed as well. Acha, This probably brings us to the last part of our conversation. You know, what sort of career opportunities are there for psychology students? Zabist has been doing a commendable job in this regard. I believe the turnover, or the number of students getting enrolled in the social sciences program, specifically in psychology majors, is it's been growing over the last 10 years. Okay,
Uh,
what future do you guys see? We being an alumni of Zabist, what kind of role we can play in, or how can we support the new breed of students, get them, integrate them into the mainstream.
Okay, I would like to add here. I was the first batch of social sciences from ZABIST, and
Wow.
yes, so the program was initiated by Dr. Fawzia Khan, and Alhamdulillah, what I am today is just because of what I have been studied at ZABIST. So
Right.
yes, the confidence of this field, the way we interact with people, the way we are able to connect with them, the way we know about the entire world these days. So yes, everybody comes to us, and then there is a trust का जो एक relationship आपका build होता है ना with the entire population. This is something very outstanding, I must say.
True.
So yes, the career opportunities are like very vast. Like what I am today, I have been a counselor, I have been a psychologist, I have been a visiting faculty, I have been a lecturer, I have been a public speaker. I am doing individual counseling, I'm doing focus groups. So, yes, there are lots and lots of things which a psychologist can do. It is not just limited to one to one counseling, but there are other areas which I guess Zain and Azam would agree with me and would add on to this thing too.
Zain.
Gee, I'm not a psychology graduate, but what I do know is that the field is vast when it comes to career opportunities for psychology majors. One-on-one counseling and being a therapist or a counselor is one thing, but then there are, like Anita mentioned, being a public speaker, going to different events and speaking on mental health issues. So maybe starting being an entrepreneur, starting your own practice. These could be the areas in which the psychology major can, get into. Um, Maybe Azam would like to add to that since he's studied psychology from Abbas.
Azam, you there? Can you hear us?
Um,
Acha, one thing, if I may ask you guys, generally, until and unless you have done your masters in psychology, okay, there are very limited opportunities out there in the market. So, what would be your advice for students, who are graduating, basically doing their BSSS?
yes,
You
I was
know,
about to add on that.
yes,
Yes, a person can be a very good research associate. I mean, there is lots and lots of work we need to do on this area, like the research ka jo area hai.
G,
And there are lots and lots of job markets which are saying that they need research associates and they're just asking the eligibility criteria is only the graduation, which
बिल्कुल,
means the bachelor's degree. So,
बिल्कुल.
yes, by the time they are doing their MPhil or they're doing their masters, again, research is a very big important part of that degree as well. Without that, the degree is incomplete. They can do lots and lots of publications, which can then help them
Yes,
to go for the government jobs as well.
true. And again, it's an area I feel, which remains untapped.
True.
Okay? Most
Yeah,
of the students, they are probably not aware of it. Do you have,
that's true.
जी बोलें, Zain?
I would just like to agree with Anita that yes, undergraduate students have a lot of scope in the areas of research and fieldwork. There are a lot of NGOs out there that hire undergraduate degree holders in psychology who don't necessarily need a master's degree to get a job in this field. When it comes to one-on-one counseling or group therapy sessions or holding counseling sessions, then probably they would require a master's degree. But in the field of areas of research, they can really excel themselves.
Do you guys, do you feel the need that graduating students should have a clarity, about their specific area of interest, when they are about to enter, or start the careers? Do you think there's a
Yes.
dearth of it?
Yes, there is. This is a must thing that we must, look into it, because you see, once we are done with the bachelor's degree, again for our MPhil or masters, we have three things we should keep in focus. Being being in a country where it's only three things are offered, like we have organizational psychology, we have general psychology, and then we have clinical psychology. So there we need to make a point that the person has interest in of what field. जरूरी नहीं है हर कोई जो है वो क्लिनिकल साइकोलॉजी से रिलेट कर पाए और लोगों के इमोशंस को इतना ज्यादा ले ले कि every person cannot have that kind of heart कि वो इतनी negativity को अपने अंदर लेके and then the person can help the other person out. So yes, the person needs to be very much clear that what are the positivities and what are the negativities, what are the person's strengths and weaknesses before choosing a career path there.
Right. So, and do you guys think, yani, when taking up the first jobs, is it really, does the salary really matters? Should that be an area of concern for, fresh grads?
I would like to say that yes, salary for some student, fresh graduates is important, but the experience matters more when it comes to the first job that the person gets. So students should, if they're listening over here, they should overlook the salary element of it and see that the value that the organization will provide to their future. That is very important. If their foundations are strong, if they're in a good company that has a great exposure, great value system, and less pay, then that's completely okay.
Right.
I would like to
Azam,
add to that.
yes, please. We've been waiting for you.
Sorry, there's been a lot of connectivity issues at my end, and
No, no problem.
everyone has to suffer at my cost. And apologies for that. What Zain was saying, that financial jo compensation है, definitely it plays a part. It's one of the motivating factors of any employee, be it a young, fresh graduate or someone with more experience. It is one of the motivational factors that caters to satisfaction of employees. However, there are many other factors involved as well. The type of relationships that you have at work, the type of people, your boss, for example, that's one of the major things that contributes to your daily work routines. The studies have even shown ideas such as proximity of the workplace from your house that can also matter to a lot of people. So there are a lot of things to consider when you consider the elements that are non-career orientation. If you're not talking about the experience, if you're not talking about the type of learning, if you're not talking about the type of grooming that the person will or individual will get at that particular organization, there are other factors to consider as well, as I just mentioned. So it's a mix of both. You cannot just ignore one for the other. They're both real parts of every individual's wants and needs. So at some level, it has to be catered to, and at some level, they need to work for it to be catered to. So that ideology where you have to work to attain something needs to be more developed. Because I see a lot of challenges within young people coming in right now, going into fresh into the industry, having a lot of high expectations, and those expectations not being met at the right level, at practical levels. So when we talk about the whole entire student counseling wala element as well, so definitely that can play a very beneficial role where it grooms students into their practical expectations out of real life and out of the industry that they're stepping into.
Right. And with admissions being taken place, I would just like to add, one more point. Zabist has also, have a full-time mental well-being counselor in place. So new and old students alike, they can approach the department at any point of time, and seek any sort of help, related to their mental well-being. And with this, I think we have probably now reached the end of our session, where again, I would like to thank Zabest and the Executive Development Center for giving all of us this opportunity. Myself and all the notable speakers, and of course our viewers, for who have given us the precious time. In case, let me see if we have got any questions. Perhaps we can answer those. Okay, I don't know, but one of the viewers have actually asked, if the participants will get e-certificate. So I really have no idea about this. So those who have been at helm of affairs would be the right one to answer this. So I think this brings us to the conclusion of our webinar. Thank you very much for all of your time, Anita, Zohaib, Azam. It's
Thank
been a pleasure talking to you all. It's been a really interactive session where I also, got a lot of insights. So, probably if you guys have your concluding remarks one by one. Anita, आपसे अगर हम कहें पहले.
So yes, this is a very important topic, I must say, and we should have like more such topics related to mental health, maybe once in 2 weeks. Because see, there's so much we can talk about on this topic. Then of course the pandemic which is going on, I feel that we should talk about like how to deal with negative emotions or how to deal with difficult emotion these days. So
बिल्कुल
people
बिल्कुल.
are facing lots and lots of problems, despite of the fact they know that okay, the negativity is around all of us, but it's something, it's a big dilemma that we cannot deal with, and we counselors or we psychologists must, have this kind of forum through Zabist where we can spread awareness to general population. I feel.
True, true. Thank you.
uh,
Zain?
Thank you, Ahmer, and thank you, Zabis, for giving us the platform to voice our thoughts. And yes, I agree, mental health is a very important topic, especially these days. And the more awareness there is for our young adult students, the better. And they should know how to deal with their mental health. They should not be afraid to come out and speak out about it. They should not feel embarrassed about their mental health issues, and platforms like these are very important to raise awareness. So good luck to Zabist for his future in dealing with mental health and well-being.
Thank you, Zain.
I would also like to thank
Ji,
Zappist and UPC for allowing us this time to participate in this particular conversation on mental health well-being. It is very important for us to realize that mental health is something that has always existed. It's not a new concept. It is something that has been there since the start of human beings, and there are healthy coping ways of dealing with different challenges. With the challenging times that we live in currently, there are a lot of unhealthy coping ways that can be made available to a lot of people. So what we need to focus on is, as we are doing in this session, bringing back the idea of mental health to the people and giving them that concept that it is okay for you to be able to go towards a therapist, a counselor, a psychiatrist, or any other mental health professional to talk about what your particular concerns are. I don't know how to use words like problems or issues, because again, those would just add to the stigma of the already existing stigma. So
Yes, yes,
let's just create an environment which is safe and healthy for everyone else as well. And as Anita mentioned, if we do this on a regular basis, that just becomes an easier job.
True.
right. So this probably ends our webinar. Thank you once again. And it's been
Right.
wonderful to have you all. Thank you. Take
Same
care.
here.
Thank you. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.
Yeah.
Mhm.